Good morning. Today we are continuing on with those multi-step equations using that more than one variable, doing lots more of the mathy math. So we are doing Po61. I can solve multi-step equations. This is where it becomes really important that we follow all the steps in the correct order. We keep it organized. Otherwise, when we write stuff all over, not in an organized fashion, that's when we make mistakes. So you might say, I'm not making mistakes. I can write it my way, it's fine. What's going to happen in the future? It's going to get more complicated, and you're not going to know how to solve it. We're going to really work at solving it the proper way, so when it gets complicated, we know the steps, we know how to follow it, and it doesn't get complicated for us, right? Step by step, when you know your steps, you can break it down and make it easier. But if you resist and say, I'm solving it my way, I'm doing it how I want to because I'm getting the right answer, I'm not going to accept it on the test because I'm looking out for the future for you. I know what's coming. And I know the problems that students have when they don't do it step by step in the right way. What happens to them when they go to algebra? I've talked with Mr. Schultz about this. So I'm going to be a little more hardcore about it. Okay? I'm looking for you to follow a certain way because I know what's coming. And this is your way of preparing for that. So let's look at this, multi-step equations. So this means solving a multi-step equation means an equation with more than two steps. We have done two-step equations. Now we're going to have multiple steps that we have to do. We've done the opposite operations where you add and subtract and then you multiply or divide. We know how to do the two steps. Now we're doing multiple steps. So there are three concepts we're going to focus on to make an equation multi-step. Combining like terms, the distributive property, and in Po62 coming up, having variables on both sides of the equation. Okay, so it gets more and more complicated as we go through our unit. So when we combine like terms, our goal that we learned yesterday was to simplify the equation by combining like terms. So it's that simplifying. Not the same kind of simplifying we do with fractions. Different way to simplify, but it's that simplifying, combining the like terms. So we have to make sure the variables are the same or they're constants. Always remembering to keep that minus or adding the plus, turning it into positives and negatives, keeping it together with the number that follows it. So when combining like terms, you're only working with one side of the equation. So you're only combining the like terms on that side. Okay, so it's not opposite sides, it's the same side. You do not use opposite operations until you move the terms to the other side to isolate the variable that we're solving for. So combining same side, then we do opposite operations. So let's see what that means. We have 6x plus 4x equals 50. So what do you think we have to do? What's our first step going to be? Amala? Yeah, I've got 6x and I've got a plus 4x. I need to combine them. What is 6x plus 4? X. 10x. And that equals 50. What do you think I'm going to do next? David? I need to divide both sides by 10. I'm going to do my opposite operation now because I want to get x by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by 10. 50 divided by 10 is 5. So my x equals 5. Now I have negative 8x plus 5x equals negative 12. What do I do? Fallon?
Add the like terms.
Add my like terms. So I've got a negative 8x and I've got a plus 5x. So when I combine that, what do I get? David?
Negative 3x plus, no, negative 3x equals minus 12.
So I have negative 3x and that equals my negative 12. I am solving. Remember, my final step I want to be at is what does x equal? So what does x equal? Claire?
Negative 4.
So how did we get that, Claire?
We divide negative 4 by negative 3.
So we divide both sides by that negative 3. So I'm left with a positive x, because negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a plus 1. What's negative 12 divided by negative 3, Claire?
4.
Positive 4. So we have to be careful with that, because at first we were thinking negative 4. But you always have to remember our rules. Negative divided by a negative makes it a positive. Next one. What should I do first? Christina. Which are? So what do I get from that? 8n. Can't forget to put that n on there. The variable is super important because then we bring down that plus 2. If we had forgotten to put the n on there, we might have accidentally added 8 plus 2. But it's not 8, it's 8n, which is a different term than the constant of 2. So we have to make sure to keep the variable. And then we put that equals 90. Now what do I do? What's my next step? Michael? So how do I do that? What's the next step? So remember, we're at the point now where we want to do opposite operations. So opposite operations is SADMER. Oh my. Always fun with technology. So SADMER. So we do subtraction or addition, then multiplication or division, opposite of what we have, because we want to go to the opposite side of the equal sign. So what am I going to do, Michael?
Subtraction.
Subtract what?
2 by 90.
Or 90 minus 2, because 2 by 90 would be negative 88. Big difference. Negative 88 to positive 88, big difference. So we subtract both sides by negative 2. So that zeroes out. We have our 8n equals 90 minus 2 is 88. What's my next step? Amala. Divide 8 from both sides, so we are left with a positive n. 88 divided by 8 is what, Amala? 11. Last one. 7 plus 10n plus 3 minus 2n equals 2. What should I do first? What do you think, Christina? Tell me what to combine. So I have that plus 10n minus 2n gives me what? Yep, because 10 minus 2 would be 8n. Don't forget your variable. 8n. Now what? Amala? I've got my two constants, plus positive 7 and a plus 3. What does that give me, Amala? That gives me a positive 10, and that equals 2. What's my next step? Luke,
Opposite operations,
so what do I do?
subtract 10 from 2.
I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. Because 10 minus 10 zeroes out, so I have 8n. 2 minus 10 gives me what? Negative 8. Now what do I do, Eleanor?
Now you're gonna divide 8 by 8 and then divide negative 8 by 8.
I divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 leaves me with that positive 1. What is negative 8 divided by 8, Eleanor? Negative 1. So it's all steps that we have done, we're just combining them together. Natalie?
How do you get the positive 8 if it's 2 minus 10?
2 minus 10 is negative 8.
Oh, because then you divide it by the...
I divide by my coefficient
Okay, I see.
so that it's divided by a positive 8. So 2 minus 10 wasn't 8. 2 minus 10 was the negative 8. But I divided it by the coefficient, which was a positive 8. Not normally going to be the same number with those positives and negatives, but this one, it does get a little confusing. But does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, so these are all steps we've done. We're just combining it into one problem. So now let's look at that distributive property. The goal of the distributive property is to eliminate, what do you think we're eliminating? Think about what we learned about the distributive property yesterday. What are we eliminating, Fallon?
Parentheses.
Parentheses. So our goal is to get rid of the parentheses by multiplying that number 3. Right? So remember, distribute the coefficient to everything in the parentheses and multiply it through. You don't add it through. You're multiplying that number through to every term inside the parentheses. Pay attention to your signs. Okay, we talked about that yesterday. If you're multiplying it by a minus 9, that's a negative 9. It's got to remain that negative unless you're multiplying it by a negative. So we're going to really pay attention to those signs. So let's do some work together. Let me scroll up so we can see it better. Let's look at this first one. What is my first step? David?
Do the distributive property multiply 7 times n and then 7 times 5?
7 times n would be 7n. What's 7 times minus 5?
Negative 35.
Negative 35. And that equals my 42. What do I do next? Graham?
Add 35.
I'm going to add 35 to both sides. So that zeroes out, so I have 7n equals what's 42 plus 35, Graham?
77.
What's my next step, Christina? Dividing that 7 on both sides. 7 divided by 7 gets me a positive 1. 77 divided by 7 is what, Christina? 11. So let's look at our next one. 3 multiplied by parentheses negative 2x plus 9 equals 39. What's my first step? Eleanor.
Multiply negative 2x by 3.
Which would be what?
Negative 6x.
Now what?
And then we're going to multiply 3 by the positive a, which would be 27.
A positive 27.
Yeah.
So plus 27, and that equals 39. What's my next step? Vivi,
Subtract, 27 and 27 and 39.
I'm going to subtract 27 from both sides. 27 minus 27 zeros out, so I have my negative 6x equals 39 minus 27, which is what, Vivi? 12. Now, this is the point where I always have students forget that this is a negative 6x, and when they bring it down, they bring down a positive 6x. Don't forget your negatives, because it's going to change your answer. What's my next step, Robbie?
Divide these two by -6.
I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 gets me a positive 1. What is 12 divided by negative 6, Robbie? Negative 2. Next one. What's my first step? 2 plus 8 parentheses n minus 5 equals 122. What's the first step that we do? Only one person knows the first step. Who is going to be brave? Michael. I multiply that distributive property. Okay. What is 8 times n? 8n. What is 8 times minus 5? So now we have to ask ourselves, what are the other parts of my equation that I need to bring down? So I can't forget that there was this 2 plus to bring down, and then equals 122. What's my next step going to be in this equation? What do you think, Eleanor?
Now we're going to 2 subtract 2 and then 122 subtract 2.
Nope. What step do we have to do first? David?
Combine our coefficients of 2 and -40.
Not coefficients, because there's no variable after them. Constants. We need to do our simplifying. Before we can do opposite operations, we have to combine like terms. So what is 2 minus 40? David?
-38.
Negative 38. So I have 8n minus 38 equals 122. Now what do I do? Addie?
Add 38 to both sides.
Add 38 to both sides. Minus 38 plus 38 zeros out. So I have 8n equals 122 plus 38, which is what, Addie? 160. What is my next step? Ruby, divide what?
8 by 8.
Divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is my positive 1. 160 divided by 8 is what, Ruby? Multi-step. Whew. First thing we want to do is look to see, are there any parentheses? Herm does. Parentheses is first. See if we can distribute. Second step is that simplifying, adding, doing that, combining like terms. Once we have that all taken care of, then we do opposite operations to solve for our variable. So let's look at this last one. 3n minus 3 parentheses 8n minus 1 equals 3. What is my first step? What should I do? Hadley. Yeah, I have to multiply through that negative 3. I'm so glad you noticed it was minus 3, because that's a negative 3 we need to multiply through, because that minus sticks with the 3. So what is negative 3 times 8n, Hadley? Then what do I do? Hadley, finish up the distributive. Negative 3 times negative 1, which would be what? Plus 3, a positive 3. Then I have to bring down everything else in my equation that I haven't done anything with. So I have a 3n, and look, that negative 24 is a minus 24, and it all equals 3. What's my next step? David,
Combine your ends, 3n and 24.
combine my like terms. So what would that turn into, David?
That would turn into -21.
Yes. 3n minus 24, and 3 minus 24 is a negative 21, and we have to keep that n with it. Bring down the rest of your equation that we didn't combine. So now we have negative 21n plus 3 equals 3. What do I do next? Claire?
Subtract 3 from both sides.
Subtract 3 from both sides. 3 minus 3 is 0, so I have negative 21n equals 3 minus 3 is what? That is 0. So negative 21n equals 0. So now what do I do? Christina? Divide both sides by negative 21. Negative 21 divided by negative 21 is a positive 1. What is 0 divided by negative 21? Robbie? 0. All right, so let's look at our second page. Our second page is our work page. Now, it says solve for each equation for the variable, show your work, and that you've checked your answer. So now that we figured out all the work, I'm going to show you how we check our answer. So, 5x plus 2x equals 77. What do I do first? Mark?
You combine the like terms.
Yeah, I'm going to combine my x's, those like terms. What is 5x plus 2x, Mark? 7x equals 77. What's my next step? Natalie?
To divide by 7.
Divide both sides by 7, so I get x by itself. 77 divided by 7 is what, Natalie?
11.
11. Now it says, check your answer. I've got x equals 11. I need to know if that is correct. So what should I do? Abby?
Put 11 in the back.
Put 11 in for the x. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, okay, 5 times 11 plus 2 times 11. Does that truly equal 77? 5 times 11 is 55, plus 2 times 11 is 22. Does that equal 77? So I do 55 plus 22 is 77. Look at that. 77 truly does equal 77. So you need to make sure both sides are equal. Actually do the math, because that will tell you if you messed up somewhere. When we have all those steps we have to do, it's easy to make a mistake, especially with those negatives. Okay, so this is going to show us, does both sides actually end up being the same? So show your work. That's your way of checking on the test. Check your answers. Am I going to mark it wrong if you don't check your answer?
No.
No, but I'm going to mark it wrong if you did it wrong. And had you checked your answer, you would have found that you made a mistake. Okay? So check your answers. So on this page, we have 3 rows of doing the same thing, following all those steps. It's not hard, it's just time consuming. We don't want to rush it because when we rush it, we make simple mistakes. And then at the very bottom, you have your time for review. Looking back at the slope-intercept form, can't forget that. It doesn't go away. Slope-intercept form you'll be using for years. So we're going to be reviewing it. Any questions on today's assignment? Okay. If you're watching this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Remember to go slow and do all the steps. Have a wonderful day.